Hello, hello, and happy Monday. Welcome to the Money Monday with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie Nielsen, and I'm a partner at Purse Strings. Here on this little Money Monday, we're all about just providing some tips, tricks, a little bit of financial information to get the wheels turning. But then when you're ready to, start generational planning, plan for retirement, get a will, get a trust, get divorced, get married, and you need to put some of these financial processes in place. We have top tier financial professionals willing, ready, and able to serve you. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and Liz here is one of them. So before we dive into all our fun generational planning today, Liz, could you give a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Happy Money Mondays. I'm Liz Herman with Sherpa Financial. I am an independent wealth and tax planning and management professional. I perform fee-only planning and wealth and tax management for families. And in particular, my passion is working with women who are making financial decisions on their own. And so helping them understand not only how money works, but their relationship with it, and helping them achieve the financial success that they desire.
I love it. Mm-hmm. That is true. We do deserve it. But today we are going to talk about savvy generational planning. And I think it's a great time to kind of bring this up because it's right before Thanksgiving when we're all kind of with our families. But it's hard for the parents to talk about with their family, their finances, or the estate plan. Why is that so difficult?
It's hard for the parents because, number one, they don't want to face the fact that someday they may not be around, and also that they don't want to think, they don't want to commit to leaving any type of inheritance because they might need it all. And they're afraid that if they say anything to the kids, that the kids are going to expect something, or that they won't. If they do get something, they're not going to be using it wisely. So there's some of those reasons that why the parents are having a hard time talking about that to their kids. And kids on the other side of that are number one, afraid that the parents are going to think that they're greedy if they talk to them about their about their finances, but they're also afraid that, hey, am I supposed to be thinking about am I going to be taking care of this person? I don't know, and and I love this person. What's going on? Kids are just busy. They just and they don't want to think about their parents and not being around. Just a real quick personal story. I was recently honored for community service, and part of the ceremony was they wanted me to do a PowerPoint of my community service, whatever. I get this presentation ready, and I saved it. I sent it to my daughter, who has a blended family, 5 kids, and I said, "Here, just keep that because you just at some point you may need it." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no," and I'm like, "Sweetheart, I'm closer to the end than the beginning. I want you to have this so that, there's something to have when it's necessary so that people remember." So yeah, it's hard.
It is a hard conversation, but it's also important. Why is it so important?
Well, first of all, having some sort of an idea in your head of what's going to happen. I'm a planner. So and many of us who are women, we are planners. And so we don't like uncertainty. And I want to tell you something really important is that, I don't know if you knew, but 80% of men die married, but 80% of women die alone. And so women are living an average of 5 years longer than men. And so then taking on financial responsibilities later in life really can be confusing, scary, and give someone the sense of being unprepared for the future and feel vulnerable. And we don't want to do that. And the other weird stat that you might want to know is that if you are a caregiver for either an adult parent or another loved one, typically you're spending $7,000 out of your pocket just for trips to the drugstore, trips to the grocery store, doctor's visits, having to, get this, that, or the other thing. And if you add lost productivity time because you can't work, that's $10,000 a year. This is really important for people to understand and to try and get hold of as they work through their long-term planning.
Yeah, it's so important. And I love that. I mean, I don't love the 80% stat, but it's an interesting one to keep in mind that, usually if this husband dies, he has almost his wife to take care of him while he's passing. But since the woman is alone, she either needs to hire help or have children as help, which, like you said, huge financial aspect. And as the child, you probably want to know if that's gonna be your role.
Mm-hmm.
Before just one day it is your role.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's one important reason why children need to talk about talk to this with their parents. But I know it's hard for the kids too. Like your daughter, she didn't really want to talk about it. Why is it so hard for kids?
Well, it's hard for kids because, again, number one, they don't want to think about their parents not being there. Those were the people who took care of them, and they've always been there. And to think of them at some point being frail and not able to do what they need to do, then it's scary. And if children want to ask about their parents' financial pictures, because a lot of kids are thinking, if something happens to mom or dad, I don't know what to do. What's going to happen? And the last thing you want is but people don't really think about this until something like a significant health event. And the last thing you want are people running around because they're stressed and somebody's not doing well, and adding financial uncertainty on top of all of that just makes it worse. And, kids also don't want their parents to think that they're greedy, if they're asking about it. And, and sometimes even, they think, well, my parents are going to be offended and our relationship is going to be ruined if I try and talk about this. But I'll tell you what, sometimes parents are over there thinking, I should talk to the kids about this and I just don't know how to do it. So it's kind of one of those things where you both know that you should be talking about this, but nobody's really willing to step up and be the first one to talk about it. And, or if you do try and talk about it and it doesn't go well the first time, that you're never going to get the opportunity again. You will. Your parents are your parents. They love you. Yeah. And as long as you come from a place of authenticity and that you're caring about them and their well-being, not yours, those can be very, very rewarding conversations.
Right. And it's much easier, like you said, to have these conversations when we're in a good, peaceful mindset versus, in the hospital, ER or something like that. And, shit's hitting the fan. That's not when you want to have these conversations. No. That's not the best time. But you do want to have the conversations while everyone's there, while everyone's comprehensive, and all these other things. Because I've heard too many terrible stories.
Oh, me too. And just because we're coming up on holiday time, I will say this. In the middle of Thanksgiving, when kids are running around and there's people coming and going, and sometimes older people, they're hard of hearing, and it just everything gets overwhelming. That's really not the best time to start thinking and talking about this stuff. If you can find some quiet time, over the weekend, or maybe if your family takes family vacations and you're all sitting around a beach fire on the beach, or sitting on couches with glasses of wine or whatever, making it very relaxed and non-stressful is the best way to do that.
It's a great piece of advice. Yeah, for sure. Especially, if everyone's coming in and out, that's not the ideal time to really have a more serious conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too is that if families are together, that's also a good time when you'll notice things are different. you come and everybody's gathered together, and you notice mom's just not quite as talkative as she used to be, or you walk in the house and there's papers all over the place. Those are some warning signs. And it helps when kids, the siblings, are all on the same page. What you don't want to do is you don't want to gang up on mom and dad or whoever, and give them any kind of ultimatum, like Sally needs to take care of your stuff or whatever. But what you want to do is, as siblings, as a family, understand what's going on and try and get some guardrails around it. And maybe there's one sibling that takes a lead. However it works within your family dynamic is fine, but just presenting a solid front, not a divided front, and making sure the family's all on the same page is really important.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, it's always better when everyone's kind of on the same page, but not coming at it full force in an accusatory way.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is savvy generational planning?
Well, savvy generational planning has 4 pieces to it. So the first piece is defining your family culture. These are things that you may take for granted because in your family it's always been this way. The values that your family always holds dear, things like fairness, faith, generosity, thankfulness, resourcefulness, those things that really make you a member of your family. Understanding those and then turning around and honoring them as you do your generational planning. And then secondly, setting those family goals. There are things like who's going to help send kids to college, or helping kids with first-time home purchases, those kind of things. Those are things that we talk about in savvy generational planning. Learning financial concepts. If you know what you want to do, but you're not quite sure the best way to do it, those are some things that we talk about. And then also preparing for your eventual passing of assets from one generation to another through the legal system and financial products. And I will say this, savvy generational planning is not just money. It's about those values, those family legacies of memories and things that ideas that you want to pass, and values from one generation to the next. That's what savvy generational planning is all about.
It does. It's like if you want to leave a legacy, to me, that's more than just leaving your cash behind. It's leaving some of those beliefs or those impacts that you've made. It's not just like, here's a bunch of cash.
Right.
And so it's interesting. I mean, I want to dive into each of these parts, but family culture and values is not a typical one that I hear. So why do you put that in your savvy generational planning?
Well, because again, if you understand why you want to do something, it's a lot easier to get it done. And by understanding how important something is to a family and to a parent, then you're more willing to do what needs to be done. I have I'm going to make this really quick.
Yeah.
2 contrasting stories. I don't know if you remember. You probably don't remember. You may have read it in the history books. The Vanderbilts. They were railroad titans back in the early 1800s. So Cornelius Vanderbilt was the patriarch of the family, and the way he ran it was you had to, if you were a member of his family, you had to prove to him that you were worth something before he would give you anything. Within 10 years after his death, half of the family fortune was gone. And within 100 years after their death, nobody in that family is a millionaire anymore because they just didn't understand what philanthropy or building wealth was all about. Contrast that with Yvon Chouinard, the CEO of Patagonia. I don't know if you have read about this. What he did was he structured his company and his succession plan such that most of his company is owned by a trust that's going to provide money to sustainability projects throughout generations. And then the other part of his company is in a different trust for his family, so that they can draw money off of that as well. So he's taking care of both things. So again, these values can play out very differently in different different families.
I love the new Patagonia story that just came out and how much he's donating. I mean, it warms my heart. And you can do both. I mean, you can support your family and your future family, as well as give back to his passions and his dreams as well.
And not everybody is going to have that luxury. I mean, we don't all have billions of dollars that we can segregate out. But at the same time, I will tell parents this. The kids, they don't want your Hummel figurines. They don't want your china. What they want is they want you to be around to make those memories with the kids and the grandkids. So, making sure that we're cultivating those relationships, and the other stuff can, all the other stuff is not important, but you are the most important thing.
That's definitely very true. So for savvy generational planning, what are some of the critical documents that are used?
So obviously, typically there are 4 main ones that you want. Of course, your last will and testament, a durable financial power of attorney, and then an advance directive, which is in case something happens to you and you can't tell the doctors what you need, that it will tell them. It will tell the doctors what you want to have happen, and then the durable power of attorney for healthcare. So those are the 4 different pieces of estate planning documents that you need. And did you know that 67% of American adults don't have a will?
Wow.
That blew me away. And I can tell you that, especially for young people, it's really, really important. If you have kids and young kids, you need to have a will in place. If you don't have any of the other documents, I get that. But here's what happens if you don't have a will, and where people get hung up is they can't agree on who gets the kids if something happens. And I'll just say this: pick anybody that's, I would rather not see a parent be named as a guardian, because I'd rather see somebody in your same age cohort. But just pick someone and do it. And you can always change beneficiaries later once you've got, a better idea, but it needs to be done.
It really does. It's so important. And I even saw this video of this girl who was a longtime babysitter for the family. And she was the one who was put as the beneficiary for the children because she was so close with them,
Absolutely.
And there are even some famous people who are still passed without their will and their trust, and it turns crazy. I mean, it's not just the average Joe, but you also don't need an estate for, an estate plan.
Right.
Just having a house or some kids is enough.
And people think, oh, well, just, if I don't have anything, I really don't need a will. Even the small amount that you may have, because what happens if you don't have a will, you die in it's called intestate. So then that way the state that you live in decides how to split up whatever assets are left, and you may or may not appreciate the way that they wanted to do that. So you don't want to leave it up to the state, or give it to the state if something happens. So make sure it goes to, at least, if you want to leave the last, $400 to the local SPCA, put it in a will.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so, part of this is, as we age, or as our parents age, how do we know if our parents are expecting us to take care of them as kind of their long-term plan? And what if we don't really want to?
So it's all about having those conversations. And some ways that I've found that you can kind of suss this out is bringing their attention, a story of somebody that you've heard. Maybe it's a neighbor who is having, whose mom, recently fell ill, or now they're thinking about doing that. And, or if you see something in the paper, and you just kind of bring it up, and like,
Say you saw this live and wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or here's the other way. You know what, Mom? I've been thinking about our estate plan, because I want to make sure that, if something happens to me, that our kids are going to be okay. What do you guys do? Coming from a place of, tell me what your expertise is, and then having that open up a dialogue so that you can find out. And you will, and honestly, some parents are very open about that. A lot of times, certain families, they already know that they're, in the past, this is the way their family's always done it, and this is the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, then we just need to make sure that you're prepared for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if, your parent says, you are my long-term care plan, and you don't particularly really want to take on that role?
So that's a time, again, to start thinking and talking about, well, Mom, I would love to do this. I'm concerned that, number one, I'm not going to be able to provide you the care that you need. What can we do to help make sure that you're going to be taken well care of, and that I can continue to honor you and my family at the same time. It can be very, very difficult. And it may take little drips and drabs over time. So in other words, not having this big, huge conversation and doing it all at one shot, but, just, okay, well, I know we have that issue. Let's try and think through that for a little while, and then go back and then maybe there's another issue, and, and here's the other thing too, is boundaries, both for parents and for kids. We need to be respectful of each other's boundaries. I know so many women who are stretched because they've got adult children at home, and they're taking care of elderly parents, and they're just at wit's end. So my clue to everybody in the family is that if you've got someone in the family that ends up being the caretaker for mom and dad, one of the three kids is going to be the one that's going to pretty much be in charge of that. The siblings, you need to take care of the caregiver, because if they fall apart, it's up to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the whole thing falls apart. So it's all about being supportive to one another and open and honest dialogue.
Yeah, definitely. We did a couple of podcasts on, the caregivers and how they can easily get burnt out. And we had another one where a woman was taking care of her aging parents as well as taking care of her special needs child.
Mm-hmm.
And also had two other kids,
Yeah.
Exhausted. I mean, even though like her husband's there and fully supportive, there's just so many things going on. How can you cope with that?
Yeah. And for us as women, I think we take on an extra emotional burden because we feel like we are expected to be the caregivers. And so we need to get to get some space and really establish some boundaries so that we have some kind of time carved out for ourselves. And there's no shame in asking for help. There really isn't.
And everyone wants to help all the time too. So you just have to ask, and give some direction to others. I feel like we've covered a ton of great information on here. What are like one or two good next action steps you think people should take after kind of listening to this?
So first of all, there's some really cool things you can do about defining your family values. Something that is fun to do around the kitchen table is you've got lots of traditions that you do for the holiday. Talk about, how did that tradition come about? Why do we do these kind of things? Those are really cool conversations that help build that family togetherness and help the young, especially the younger ones, understand why we do these things. And also, certainly, if someone wants to start a conversation like, hey, I've got this person, in my life that I'm thinking that we may want to, I may want to talk to, certainly reach out to me. We can start telling you, we can start talking about what some tactics would be in your particular situation to get that conversation started. And I will absolutely always advocate for doing, for getting your wills done.
Yeah.
If I prefer if you go to a local attorney, but some people can't swing that. LegalZoom.com, freewill.com. Just get it done. Get it done.
It's worth the investment. I swear it's worth the investment.
Yep.
Awesome. This has been such great advice. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure is shared?
I just you know what? Just being prepared for whatever can happen is one of the things that I do is I believe that prior preparation prevents poor performance. So
I love that.
One of the things that we do is we start preparing both parents and their children now so that they'll be ready for the time comes. There's some checklists. There's some education that we can do. Find, if there's certain topics that people want to be educated in, not just that you need to do anything other than get educated. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody to fill them in on things like, how to manage debt, or how to prepare for taking money out in retirement, those kind of things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, Liz, and informing us about the savvy generational planning, giving us some great tips and food for thought, when we meet with our families this holiday season. If anyone does have any more questions, you can always email Liz. Her email is going through the bottom. She's also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will be back here again next Monday with another Money Monday. So thank you again, Liz, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye.